It's Christmas time, and I usually whip out all my Star Wars comics or comic books, period, that have snow settings, and this is one that I've been saving. Star Wars issue number 78 from Marvel Comics 1983. Still a few issues away from their Return of the Jedi adaptation. So they didn't have much creative license. They couldn't rescue Han. Actually, they did like 20 issues or something, and like in all those issues, they're trying to rescue Han, but then they'd get like distracted into different subplots on different systems or doing random missions for the rebellion. Anyway, so this is one where Luke Skywalker and Leia and some random rebel pilot, they end up finding a derelict spacecraft, alien style, just out floating out in the middle of nowhere. And they end up getting the black box, obtaining it from the ship and listening to it. And there's a lot of scientific and mechanical lingo that's used in this. It's good if you're a sci-fi writer to write down and use it in different stories or whatnot. And so it tells the story. They actually, Nathan P. Butler, the guy who does, I love all of his Star Wars, Marvel, he's reviewed every single issue, and I love reading the issues and listening to his reviews. We actually started reviewing the Star Wars Marvel series around the same time in November 2012, but he has all the books. I only have random omnibuses, so I don't have the whole collection. I can't do it in order. But anyway, he really didn't like this because it goes against carbon canon of the Star Wars timeline, in that Wedge Antilles, they mix him with Biggs, the guy who got killed and who's from Tatooine's home planet. They meld his backstory in with that. They kind of mess it up with the Marvel series, I don't know, intentionally or just they weren't diligent enough. Who the heck knows? Anyway, but I like to see the bright side in this because it's the Return to Hoth. It tells about how he survived it and got off the planet, and they go through and they introduce an awesome villain. Well, let's just say this. First, he runs into the Wampas. This is what I saw it for. This is Star Wars' version of the Abominable Snowman, as you may know. And they end up killing their Tauntaun, and he's there with Janson, who's pretty much dying, who's losing blood, and he has to fend off Wampas, and he fights, and he hunts ice scrapers, as he calls them, which are other animals on Hoth that he was hunting to kill. And what happens is scavengers end up showing up, led by this guy, who's a chief scavenger, who once dealt with the rebellion, as they say. They build up this guy called Arns Grimraker. Great villain. He's a cyborg. They give him a semi-background. You think they're going to use him in future issues, but he ends up dying in this. And they end up saying that he's a real... This is what Antilles says about him. He says, "I doubt you could find a crueler, more soulless man in the whole universe." And he knows Darth Vader. And this is his crew that he runs with. And they actually, this is another thing that I hate about Marvel. Most of the aliens that they draw really suck. But this issue, these aliens are pretty dope. They could give the bounty hunter crew a run for their money in terms of artistry. And so they're gathering all the materials, the waste materials of the wreckage of the aftermath of the battle on the Hoth, which is the ice world. And here goes another shot of these guys. Awesome shots. And what ends up happening is, and Wedge ends up stealing one of their spacecrafts and flying off, and he ends up recalibrating the system so that they end up following him and the TIE fighters, and he ends up directing them into a path of TIE fighters from the Imperial, who are just orbiting the planet waiting for stragglers to come out, and they end up blowing him up and killing this character, this cyborg character, unfortunately. And so that's unfortunate, but And let's get back to Luke Skywalker and Leia. So they're listening to this whole story of the black box on the ship, and they find out that Wedge is alive. So Luke thinks he's dead the whole time, but Wedge is actually hanging outside of the spacecraft, fixing like who the heck knows. And then he ends up showing up in the spaceship, and then he lets him in, and then it's like a sentimental ending, you know. But still, even though it goes against Star Wars timeline, expanded universe timeline, it's still a solid story that you can get a lot from. And if you love the Hoth world and want to re-enter that world and see more Wampa action, it's pretty awesome. And then I didn't really see the scavenger plot line coming in, so that was a good part. So overall, I give this a B+. I really loved it. This was JBM. I'm out.